And hello to you. It is the Nikki Maduro Show. Of course, Nikki off today and tomorrow. She'll be with us Wednesday through Friday of this week. But until then, I'm Kim McAllister and I'm filling in for Nikki Maduro on the Nikki Maduro Show. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it. As always, you know what I love is when I get some phone calls and people call in and talk about the stories of the day. So that's something I wanted to make sure to do today. And of course, I just screwed up and deleted the link I was going to post. So let me try it one more time. This is the link to call if you wanna. There it is. So I'll put it out there into the world. And if you feel so inclined, I would love to have you participate in the conversation today. One of the things that I wanted to talk about was this New Jersey Little League. I don't know if you've been to Little League games, or I would say really any child sports games can be pretty brutal. So we'll get into talking a little bit about that. There's some new rules that are being imposed at the Little League in New Jersey. I also wanted to talk a little bit about this new camp in Santa Cruz, and it's a drag camp. It looks pretty cool to me, but I'm sure they're getting some pushback on that. So we'll delve into a little bit of it, talk about what it means for kids' confidence and how it could be a confidence builder. So we'll look at drag camp in the Santa Cruz area as well. If you haven't already, please click the like button, the little thumbs up. We really appreciate that because it helps the YouTube powers understand that people like what we're doing and elevate the show a little higher in the stature there. And of course, we're always willing to take your money. You can help us further the show by contributing via Patreon or PayPal. And the link to the show is the Nikki Maduro Show.com, the Nikki Maduro Show.com, Medoro. And it's Nikki, not Mickey. So the Nikki Maduro Show.com. You can see it featured right there. Also, the super chat is open here on YouTube. So thank you for all the ways that you contribute, even just being here and considering calling in. So I appreciate that as well. Let's get to the story out of New Jersey. Again, if you've been to a child sports game, sometimes it can get a little intense. I would say downright brutal. For some reason, parents seem to think their child is the next up and coming not Major League Baseball star or NFL star or whatever. And it can't just be a kids game. A game of kids learning, a game of kids having fun. It has to be this, you know, intense rooting from the sidelines. Go, go, go. It's not just, yay, Billy, you've done it. It's more of a like an angry, like you're rooting for a professional sports star. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on kids. And then if the referee, umpire, what have you, makes a call the parent thinks is against their child, watch out. So the New Jersey Little League has a new rule. They're trying to protect their umpires from harassment here. And among the rules is that you have to try to keep unruly fans in check, they say, by, let's see, uh, they want you to, if the first infraction, you have to serve as an umpire for 3 times. So 3 times before you are allowed back in the stands as a parent, I guess. So basically, you've got to volunteer as an umpire, and then you can see what it's like to have that criticism directed toward you. Maybe then you won't be so quick to complain, to hassle people that are on the field, most likely in either very low paying jobs or volunteer jobs. So that's one of the biggest new rules that they have for the New Jersey Little League. And they're thinking that by doing this, it'll help. So, yes, unruly fans will be barred. You'll have to complete 3 umpiring assignments before you're allowed to return. Uh, the change was made after 2 umpires quit because of all this. And this change was supported by the league's code of conduct committee as well. So get your rear end out there on the field. Have you ever volunteered for something? put on an event at a school, there's always someone who's critical. There's always a parent who's like, "Why did you do it this way?" Or, "Why did you do the talent show this way? Why did you do the dance this way? Why did you whatever?" And I had a friend who was a PTA president, and her comeback was always, "Thank you so much for the feedback. We really appreciate it. Next year we'd love to have you volunteer and, put those ideas into motion." Put your money where your mouth is. Either stop complaining or get out there and do it yourself. And I really like the way that New Jersey is like, yeah, get out there on the field and do it yourself. We'll see how you do, right? There's two things really to talk about here. And one of them is the way parents are, in some cases, rabid fans on the side. Of course, we're all our kids' biggest fan. You got to keep that stuff in check, though, don't you think? The other is the rule change and, volunteering after you're complaining. So, yeah, they're going to have a lot of umpires, I predict, writes Eric. I think they will have a lot of umpires because people have a hard time closing their mouths. I was at a little league game one year. This is the first year my son has decided not to do little league. He's just, he there were some other kids that were always better on the team, and he would get made fun of, and he wasn't having a good experience there. So he switched over to basketball. But there were some grandparents that were just crazy rabid fans on the sidelines. Like, I don't know, we were playing against the worst team or their evil nemesis. Like you hear people, if it's a Giants Dodgers game, screaming at the other team like they're the Dodgers. Crazy. I know, Nick. Parents biased toward their own kids. No way. You're always going to be biased toward your own child, but that doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it, right? They say, don't coach from the sidelines. So you can root for kids, but not to the point of, trying to take over the coaching or screaming at them to, run faster, do better. You see sometimes, oh, I've frozen in time again. What a total bummer, even after restarting my computer. You see some people just go crazy on the sidelines. It is absolutely wild. Nemen writes, just let the kids enjoy the sports. Yes. Chris B says, I coach Little League. Our parents are pretty good, but the inside politics with the managers is terrible. I'd love to hear more about that. Inside politics with the managers, like whose kid, gets to go up first, the batting lineup, whose kid gets to put on the catcher's gear. Because I know it last year it was second grade. And so only certain kids got to play catcher, only certain kids got to put on the gear. How do they make the choice as to whose kid gets to do that? And the other kids were disappointed. So yeah, I bet that's all about who volunteers. Uh Chris says, when I was in Little League, almost no parents stuck around to watch. Really? Now I go to parks and there's more parents and family than kids playing. Yeah, I mean, it's true, Chris. Not only the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the everybody. You got the whole cheering and rooting section. The entire family out there doing that. Chris likes the rule. That's a good rule. There's a huge shortage of umpires, referees for youth sports. So making it unbearable on them is so counterproductive. It's very true. And again, it's that whole thing of, if you don't like the way we're doing that, you get your rear end out here and you volunteer. Let's see the parents criticize you. And if you are the one being criticized, maybe, you'll have that empathy and that restraint that you need before you open your mouth and, speak out against the referee again. Murphy says, yeah, be the change you want to see. Gen X was the parentless generation. They were working. Okay. They were busy supporting us while we were all out there doing our thing. Hi, Kim. She says, Little League has changed since my brother played. Parents drank soda and ate peanuts back then. Now they drink wine and eat cheese and crackers. That's because you live in Marin, Kim. They don't do that in Petaluma. Maybe you're right. They don't sell booze at the snack shack at the Little League thing in town. But I will tell you, this is a baseball town and people take it very seriously. Lori loves the umpire thing. Great idea. Yeah. I'm sure you've seen it at schools too, Lori, where you've got these you have a very few parent volunteers. It's always the same ones. They're always putting money and time into things, and then you have the parents that never volunteer, very critical, you know? So it's like, you do it then. If you have a problem, you do it. We'd love to see the way you would handle the situation. They warned about this the us about this in junior Giants coaching, says Jose. What kind of self-control are the parents teaching their kids? One wonders, Harry. Indeed. Denise writing, the politics of the teammates whose parents play their child and limit the teammates whose parents are willing but unable to volunteer is as much as frustrating. It's not fair to the kids. You know, just because you have one parent volunteer and the other not, it shouldn't really dictate who gets to play and who doesn't get to play. But you see that sometimes in school plays as well. It's really all. I mean, even if it's not a physical sport, you know, the person who runs the play, their kid sometimes mysteriously ends up as the lead. Oh, how does that happen? Not even in school plays, but also community theater plays as well. So, but again, unless you want to be the one out there doing the work, you really can't complain about it. Some parents overindulge nostalgia, vicarious enjoyment. That's what leads to toxic behavior. I think you have something there when you talk about vicarious enjoyment. We think our kids' success is an extension of our own, right? So if they're good at something, that must be because somehow of us. If they suck at something, we must not have done a good enough job. Right? And so we take that personally. I think that is true, that you sometimes can live vicariously through your children. You enjoy their success because it reflects back on yourself. But does it really? Does the fact that your kid has talent really have anything to do with you? Does the fact that your kid sucks at hitting a ball with a bat reflect on you? I don't think so. Donna rather writes, it's called daddy ball softball. Is horrible as well. Mm. I think it's really we're seeing in all kids sports because this is, you know, the New Jersey rule in their little league that they're saying you if you know, are caught criticizing the umpire in a loud and offensive way, you got to get out there 3 times and serve before you're allowed to go back into the stands and be a parent again. Thank you very much for pressing the like button. I do appreciate that. Jose writing, junior Giants coaches told us to invite the hecklers to coach if they were unhappy. That's right. Invite that is the perfect way to deal with it. Instead of getting hurt by those comments, instead of I put on a father-daughter dance one year. A lot of people asking for it. And so I put in all this work. And I mean, it was, you know, rent the venue, get the security, you know, you had to call your insurance and the school's insurance and get the security and get the food organized and the decorations organized and make sure everything was okay and get the cleanup crew and the setup crew and everything. And then you got people criticizing that it was an antiquated idea, that father-daughter dances shouldn't be allowed, and that it was kind of icky. And it's like, after I've done all this work, could you not have said that and decided that before? Maybe you didn't like the idea of a father-daughter dance, but after someone does all the work, that's not the time to complain. And guess what? You're in charge of the dance next year, whatever it turns out to be, right? It can be hurtful. So instead of taking that criticism to heart, turn it around and say, you know, next year, we'd love for you to be on the volunteer committee to put on the dance, to be the umpire, to serve as the coach, to pick the thing, to be the play director, whatever it is. Thank you. Thank you very much for being the one to get your butt out there and try it next. My wife asked, says Chris B, if I wanted a beer during my son's last game. And I was like, no, I'm coaching right now. This isn't our adult co-ed softball. Right. That's so funny. That's true. Kim says they bring their own wine and apps. Petaluma makes it to the Little League World Series often. It's a big deal up there. It is. And you know, it's fun to watch them succeed. I'm not going to say it's not. It is fun to watch these kids rise and reach their level of success and to get all the way to the Little League World Series and the whole town gets involved and it's so exciting and you just root for them. But also at the same time, you have to ask how much pressure that's putting on them. Because, at the end of it, it's still a game and a thing you want them to have fun doing. It's not something that you want to have, be a bad memory for them or be just this undue burden on their shoulders. So what if I screw up and my whole team's going to hate me and my whole town's going to hate me? I worry about that. We want the biggest hothead parents out on the field as the umpires. Well, no, but also yes, because if they face the same criticism they're dishing out, then maybe they'll think twice. And I think that's the idea. You may be a hothead, but if you start making it doesn't matter what the call is, there's always someone that's going to complain about it from either side. So it just might be nice to have people get a taste of their own medicine because maybe then the next time they'll swallow it, right? Jose says the adults really need to keep each other in check. It's true, but then if you hear a parent kinda yelling and going to a place where you're like, I don't really like how you're kinda trying to coach from the sidelines, and that's kind of what the coach should be saying, and you need to just say, "Yay, Billy," or "Yay, Susie." That's it. That's really, just clap and you know, enjoy watching them play without all the other stuff. There have been times where I've, thought, "Oh, gosh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Was that too much like coaching?" If I say, "Keep your eye on the ball, keep your eye on the ball," is that too much? Did I cross the line? Just a clapping and a yang of the child's name and that's all you really need. Um, James, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. We love it. Thank you for supporting the show. We need all the help we can get to keep the lights on and the doors open. John says you've got parents fighting at games and such. This is true. There have been out and out brawls and spilling into the parking lot even after the game. It does seem like, though, often alcohol is involved when that is occurs. Jim, oh, use Chat GPT to umpire the games. No one to yell at. Sorry, I had to be a little sarcastic. Lori says, great way to model bullying. I bet the same parents complain about school not keeping bullying in check. Right. Because you don't realize sometimes how hypocritical, you could say one thing and then turn around and complain and say something else. It's just, yeah, people don't realize how they are perceived, I think sometimes. And maybe the best way for them to understand that is for them to be the person taking all the complaints. Chris says little leaguers walk around here like they're major leaguers. Back in the 80s, they were just a bunch of ragamuffins with hand-me-down bats and gloves. Not anymore. Mm-mm. When my son did little league, they get the jersey and they get the hat, and the coach will say everyone's wearing gray pants this year with a belt, or this type of pants, white pants without a belt or whatever it is. And yeah, no, they look really sharp out there. Chris says Positive Coaching Alliance has some good resources. 5 positive reinforcements for every criticism. I think that's how you need to treat kids. Yeah. And it's the way you criticize as well, I think. So, the way you couch criticism is not, you really suck at hitting the ball. Why don't you try to put your arms up, your elbows up a little more? No. You say, let me show you a way I think you might be able to get some more distance on that ball or hit it a little harder. Here's how I do it. Not every correction has to sound like a criticism. But I like that. 5 positive reinforcements for every criticism. I might try to put that into my parenting repertoire. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. And John says, yeah, ref GPT. $250 bats. No. I was looking for the cheapest one at Dick's Sporting Goods. Come on. But every kid does come with their own bat and their own helmet and their own mitt. It's an expensive excursion. That's not the way it is, by the way, with basketball. You don't have to come with your own basketball. Murphy says, side note, white baseball pants should not be allowed for Little League. Agree. Laundry time was ridiculous. They look nice in the pictures, but yeah, they're rough every week to get all the stains out of those. This is true. It should always be the black pants, right? I think that's the case. So, yeah, thank you for participating in that discussion with me. I appreciate that very much. I do want to talk a little bit about this drag camp in the Santa Cruz area. I don't know if you've heard about this. Uh, they've got some right wing trolls coming after them. It's a drag sleepover camp. And at first you think, okay, well, that's interesting. And then you start reading about what they're saying, what the kids are saying when they do this and when they go to this camp. And I want to show you some pictures. Let me get the Patreon thing off the screen here so you can better see. I want to show you some pictures because there's kids putting on makeup, right? There's kids going to put on the clothes and then they do a performance. Uh, some of the kids are young, like 8, 12 type of thing. Let's see if I wanted to show you some more pictures. Here's some of them performing. I don't know if you can see that really well. And you can see the kids behind them all dressed up. Um, one of the parents said, I didn't know about this, but as soon as I got here, as soon as I saw my child thriving, I was all for it. Absolutely all for it. Here's the leader of the Young Actors Theater Camp. And this started as kind of one of the days or one of the things that kind of a part of the program of the Young Actors Theater Camp. And it was so popular, they ended up doing an entire drag camp just in and of itself. So that's pretty cool. What they say is we've always noted to the kids boys can dress like girls, girls can dress like boys. Anyone can dress however they want. You can be a unicorn. It's about freedom of expression, including choosing not to dress up at all. Some kids choose that, and that's awesome too. So they say over the years, this got turned into a bigger and bigger deal. More young people becoming familiar with the art because of, RuPaul's Drag Race on TV. And it is this moment where these kids have really gained confidence. Uh, they say this is the quote: drag is just a form of acting. It is a creative, powerful, personal form of self expression. It allows you to search inside yourself, explore aspects that you may be afraid to dig into. You may be hiding pieces of yourself, pretending to be different things to different people. According to one of the instructors who led the master class, telling SF Gate, uh, drag allows you to pinpoint something you love feeling and doing and then exaggerate it. It's a safe place to be overly confident, to be sassy, and to be free. And I think that's what it's about, having this moment where you can be whatever you want and be surrounded by people who celebrate that. And because of that, you can be more confident and you can be have more of an attitude, and hopefully you're able to, thank you for putting up with my scrolling through the pictures there, hopefully you're able to really carry this confidence with you even outside of drag camp. What drag camp is not? uh it is not a pedophile ring. It is not something gross. It is not something teaching you to be gay or trans or anything else. It is simply a place to be yourself with confidence. And again, that could mean not dressing up. That could mean dressing up as a different gender. It could be dressing up as your own gender. It could be you were always afraid to sing in front of people, but for the first time at drag camp, you felt that camaraderie, that solidarity, that freedom that you were able to do that. And I think that's huge for kids. If that's what drag camp provides, I'm all for it. I would absolutely send my kid to drag camp and she would love it. Both of them would love it, boy and girl. I don't have any problem with that. Do you? Well, somebody did, right? The co-founder says they did have little bit of trolling going on. As a matter of fact, that's the headline in SF Gate. Right-wing trolls couldn't stop this Santa Cruz drag sleepover camp. So while they couldn't stop it, they also couldn't shut their mouths. Anyway, I love to see that. I love to see those kids experimenting with something that kind of pushes them into having more confidence and being a little more fun. maybe your kid has been reserved, or they, are having trouble expressing themselves, or they're always the quiet one in the corner, and then they get to this group of people who celebrates just being you. It's great. And again, being you doesn't mean that, you're a trans person or a gay person, or it could mean that, and that's all okay. So, I love that. Yes, drag is just a form of acting that teaches confidence. I think we all need to remember that. Lori says drag does not equal trans. Get a grip and educate yourself. That's very true. Kim says, I love it. The intolerants are going to say the parents are forcing this on them, but you're just letting them be free to be themselves, whoever they may be. And you heard it from the director of the camp. That could mean, if your kid goes to this drag camp, it could mean that they just are themselves and they get up and sing or do whatever, or don't, because you're free to be you, and that is celebrated. Where else can you go where that is celebrated? You can be as extroverted as you want or as introverted as you want, and it's just you. They just celebrate you. That's something right there. That's value. Another case of, if you don't like it, don't send your kids. That's right. No one's forcing your kid to experience it. So much for the lack of freedom of speech people complain about. I would agree. Yeah. I thought someone had mentioned something else here. Conservatism, or conservatives rather, writes Nick, have adopted the behaviors they condemn. Cancel culture, Big Brother, and activist judges are all exhibited in the right wing, they're in the right in contemporary politics. I wonder if they see that hypocrisy, or if it's just a case of, it's okay if we do it, but not when you do it, right? Perry Judge Jim Bob, I'm ambivalent about this. I wish it wasn't an issue. I wish it wasn't either. I'm ambivalent about the camp though. I don't, I'm looking around for summer camps, and I don't see a lot of camps like this that really celebrate the kid. You go here, you learn how to draw. You go here, you learn how to shoot basketball. You go here, we put on a play. But there's no camp that just focuses on, who do you want to be? Who do you want to pretend to be? If you could be anybody for a day, if you could act any way for a day, how would you want to? Who's your alter ego? You know, that's that's a way to really give a child confidence, that they can be whoever, and they can still be celebrated and loved for that. So I'm a little less ambivalent about that. I wish they had one in Sonoma County, honestly. Too far of a drive to Santa Cruz these days. I'm a little confused about this. I think they're saying that drag is anything that is not yourself. So it's an exaggeration, right? And your exaggeration could be, if you're a girl, not necessarily dressing as a girl, but you don't usually wear sparkly clothes, and you don't usually get to wear the big makeup. Your mom doesn't let you, go to school every day looking like this adorable girl who is who's, putting on the sparkle blush, right? Maybe this is not something she gets to wear, the sparkles and the sequins and the makeup every day. So it's just a moment where you can play around with those things and exaggerate. That's what drag is. So they're saying it's not necessarily men dressing as women, but that drag is just the act of acting as in an exaggerated fashion of whatever it is that you want to act like today. So maybe for me, that could be acting, if I want to do something exaggerated, it could be wearing a platinum blonde wig and high heels and, strutting my stuff in the mom pickup line. I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, you get what I'm saying. Just the freedom to do those things. And people don't get that freedom because they have to fit into their little boxes. So to allow children to just express it seems pretty valuable to me. Maybe I said that wrong. I don't know. Are there women on RuPaul's Drag Race? I don't know because I haven't watched the show, Joe. Maybe there are. I'm not sure. Murphy says, I love that that's available. I do too. Again, I wish it was available closer to me. and the problem with that, Murphy, though, is in Santa Cruz, it's a pretty, I don't know, liberal place, as is most of the Bay Area, much of the Bay Area. But you've got pockets of it. There's pockets of Sonoma County and East Bay and whatever that are very conservative. And so then if it takes off and you've got one in most communities, let's wait for the pushback on all that. Mm. Murphy says, yeah, no. Yeah. And I was skipping over that on purpose because that's not cool. Really, it isn't. That's a racist statement. Karen says, it's all being used as a political football, not a real issue. It's not mocking femininity, Chris. That's the thing. It is being who you want to be. And that could be anything exaggerated. It could be an exaggerated male character or female character, or as the director of the camp said, a unicorn. Not mocking femininity. And by the way, as someone who has those parts, I don't mind if you want to put on extra makeup and a big wig and get a little confidence in yourself. Go for it. Do it. Eric says they're quite immune to the accusations of hypocrisy. They just don't care. I would agree with that. Yeah. Nick, you nailed it. The don't tread on me flag being flown by people trying to legislate what you can read. Really, hypocrites. This seems so shallow. How about helping the environment in some way, picking up litter or helping animals? You think the camp seems shallow? There's a place for helping the environment. I mean, yes, that's very valuable. There is a place for picking up litter, for learning and helping about animals. But there's also a place for celebrating yourself. And there are a lot of kids out there, Mindy, that have confidence issues. And a camp like this would go a long way to helping kids realize they can be themselves and it's okay. They don't have to stay locked up in a little shell. So I think there's a place for this too, Mindy, as far as I'm concerned, if that's what you're trying to say. As a feminist, writes Murphy, I please say drag does not mock women. I don't feel it does either. I've never once felt mocked. And I recently I think I had on Mark Thompson's show, the man who owns the Oasis, which is the largest drag club in the United States. And I've thought what they do there is wonderful. I didn't feel like it was a mockery at all. If women aren't bothered by it, maybe you shouldn't be bothered by it. Lori says, I would have called it dress up camp or theater camp. I feel like by calling it drag camp, the organizers are also trying to make a statement. Imagination camp, free to be me camp. Maybe, or maybe it's flipping the script though, Lori, on what drag really is. Because when in this article on SF Gate, it's drag is described as an exaggerated form of acting and that you can be anyone, that to me changes how I perceive the word drag. I may have thought when I was talking about drag, oh, I just see, really tall men dressing up as women that look better than me and have better voices too. That's what I may have come to mind, right? But now when I think of drag after reading this, I think anything really exaggerated and just a way to have fun. And so by calling it drag camp, maybe you change the script. I do agree, Lori, that they're going to get pushback from it, but maybe this is a way to change perception. Kim says women can dress as men, and that's drag. Joe says let's make a new word then, not change the meaning of a different one. Well, maybe though I had the meaning of drag wrong all along. Maybe they're not changing the meaning of the word drag. Maybe that's been the meaning of the word. And I just perceived it because of who I saw up on stage. It's possible that's the case. I'm willing to admit that. Murphy says, whatever you put on after your birthday suit, that's your drag, as RuPaul says. And so, yes, if that's been the case all along, I got it wrong. So, my fuzzy sweater that's my drag. I guess it's really the window dressings that we want the world to see. And that could be my plain black shoes and my skirt and my sweater. And that's the picture that I want to present to the world. Or it could be this over the top, glittery, high heeled something. And that's the package you want to present to the world. But whatever it is, it's you and you should have confidence in it. Right? Joe says, but it isn't. It isn't? But maybe I'm saying, Joe, maybe it is. I mean, maybe I've had it wrong this whole time. Maybe drag isn't just men, being I don't know what the word is, overly feminized or exaggeratedly feminized. Maybe it doesn't have to do with simply one gender pretending to be the other. Maybe it's both genders pretending to be anything they want to be. Maybe that was the true meaning of drag all along. I have to go back and look into it, but according to what the director of the drag camp is saying, drag is simply an exaggerated form of acting. That's what it is. So if that's the case, I don't necessarily know that that's changing the meaning. I think that's just maybe the true meaning, and something we need to have our perception needs to change, because that's really been the meaning, and we're ascribing things to it that really aren't there. Um, okay. Or maybe it's not cabaret shows for little kids, right? Maybe it is just a fun show for little kids. There's when you say cabaret, it makes me think of a nightclub with drinking, and that's not what this is. This is a confidence builder. I am right now, I have to tell you, so excited, like really excited. I'm going to stop sharing this screen so that I can, and I'm sorry that my screen is frozen, but Murphy is calling. Murphy, I love your comments all the time. I'm so grateful that you took the time to call in, and I love your red hair. Welcome to the Nikki Maduro Show.
Hi, Kim. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great.
Hi.
I was not going to call in because I don't have an opposing uh, feeling
Viewpoint?
on
Yep.
this. I agree. You're singing to the choir. I'm
Mhm.
for this, but I wanted to just publicly say that I think this is amazing. I actually have a drag definition that might help some
Please.
people. And this was on Business Insider when people were talking about like literally the business of drag, and they were interviewing people who were giving the history of drag. I mean, back to the Greeks,
Right.
right? The Greek chorus stepped out. That's when theater became theater, and there was cross dressing all along. But in this Business Insider article, it says drag is the act of highlighting and emphasizing various feminine and masculine features. So if I'm usually jeans and sweatshirts, if I dress up in something really fabulously feminine, that's also drag for me when I'm just putting it all on. I was a cruise ship showgirl in, feathers, heels, gold bikini. That's not me. Like that
That's
type
drag?
of performance, that's drag for
Or
me.
is that just your ship uniform?
No, that was in the show. That was in the show. We had
So
polo shirts and khakis to walk around, like a very masculine ship duty type of thing. If I was like sitting in the library checking out books, if we're in port.
mhm.
But if we're at sea and we're performing, and I'm in a gold bikini and a really huge feather headdress and heel and like 3-inch heels, that's very much drag because that, I mean, somebody born male wearing that's very drag. But me wearing that's very drag for me too,
But
honestly.
and I think that's where we've lost the meaning,
Hmm.
because for most people the meaning is one gender dressing up as another in an exaggerated way.
Yeah,
But it turns out we had it wrong,
yeah.
right? It
And
turns
and
out
I've played
that
men or
yeah.
I've played boys on stage too. When I was in college, I was playing a 10-year-old boy in a Shakespeare play that we were doing that year, and we were all college students and they weren't hiring outside. It wasn't community theater.
Mhm.
Only students could be in the show, and I was a shorter, smaller female, and I mean, and I could act. I mean, I was a
Mhm.
theater major, and I was that one of my 3 parts in that was playing the young boy prince that was the son of one of the lead characters. And like I was reviewed in the newspaper, like I don't think they realized who I was. They were like, very young and personable or something like that. And I was like 20 or something. And I was playing a 10-year-old. But in like the second act, I was an extremely busty shepherdess. Um, and it was the same show. And like for me, kind of both were drag because I wasn't going to be running around in shepherdess flounces and stuff
So what
either.
does it do then if we finally get the real meaning of drag, and it's not just men dressing up in, crazy wigs and, and giant heels? If the meaning of drag is, as the article on SF Gate says, an exaggerated form of acting, and as you say with Business Insider, um, what was the definition? The
Highlighting and emphasizing various feminine and masculine features.
So that doesn't mean then that has to be a man dressing or a woman dressing as a man. That means that we've had it wrong just because of who we thought drag performers were. That
Yes.
really the word drag is different than what we thought. And
Yes.
how does that change the perception then of what drag really is and how we should respond to it?
Well, honestly, I think that people are overemphasizing the drag queen aspect
Mhm.
because of homophobic tendencies and a lot of the Florida Don't Say Gay bill and that sort of thing. I mean,
And a
we have a
campaign of
frequent,
misinformation,
I say
I would
we,
say.
you
Yeah.
have a frequent participant in the chat who's a drag king here in San Francisco. I think her name is Kim, who was saying that you remember there was a drag queen recently who passed away in England, and she said that that was one of her mentors when she
Oh.
was coming up. But there's a drag king, excuse me,
Mhm.
who's literally part of this chat community, like all the time.
And
Um,
and welcome, because everyone is welcome, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it has a lot, honestly, to do more with homophobic feelings even than transphobic, so to speak. That this part is being overemphasized for this matter.
Let's take a look at what JR says. If you want to hang out with me for a bit, I would appreciate it because I really love your perspective. He says, drag will usually, and I think JR is a man. Says drag will usually be associated with gay men. Even to many in California, women dressing as men don't have the same stigma. Misinformed? Probably. But historical perspective, right or wrong, usually prevails. But maybe not if we understand the real meaning. I don't know. Maybe I'm pie in the sky dreaming over here.
Yeah, and not all. So and very few trans people are drag performers.
Right.
Right? And not all drag performers are trans.
I would say probably most of them are not.
Yeah, I mean, so when I was on the ship, we did put on a drag show just for the crew, for ourselves, like
Mhm.
literally in the bowels of the ship. This was not up on a stage where any passenger was part of this. This was just for us. And one of my cast members, um, dressed as a girl and is now trans and fully like female persona in
Mhm.
life. And one of my cast members, whom I helped with hair, makeup, and everything, he is a gay man, but he's an extremely masculine gay man in the rest of his life. He is a big, muscly dude who absolutely loves being a masculine dude, but he had fun doing the drag show.
Mhm.
And it wasn't he did not want to be approached, like he wasn't doing it to have people come onto him as a woman or anything like that either. And he definitely wasn't making fun of women. he was just in a costume having fun and performing. They all did a lip sync. Like
I
each
don't
one
see
did a lip
what's wrong
sync.
with that.
It's so fun.
But I do have a problem with this, and this is Chris Hultgren again.
Yeah.
Would you be okay with little boys pole dancing in drag? I'm curious how far you're willing to take this. And Chris, let me say, dressing up and having fun is not sexual in nature. Pole dancing could be construed as sexual in nature. So I would say, no, Chris, I don't think I would be okay with traditional, what I think of, unless I'm thinking of it wrong, pole dancing. There are some people who say pole dancing is for exercise, and you'll see women, maybe men, going to a pole dancing class because that'll really work your core, right? But would I encourage children to pole dance and drag? Well, Chris, now I think you're crossing a line into sexuality. And I think that you should know better, honestly. I think that this is not about sex. This is just about confidence, and it's about, dress up. And girls play dress up in princess costumes all the time, and that doesn't have to be sexual. So why would an exaggerated dressing up of anything turn something into sexuality? And I think you took something that, could be confidence building and lovely and made it ugly there. And I don't like it, I have to say.
Yeah, I don't think I feel like when we do the whatabouts, it really takes us off of the discussion of is what is beneficial for children. And honestly, if children want to be dressing up in a fabulous costume and performing and gaining confidence and they love being in that performance, how does that detract from that child?
I have a
Um,
daughter who is very into musical theater, and she played the evil nanny in Mary Poppins. It's in the play, not in the movie.
mhm.
And her name is Ms. Andrews, and she wears this big black dress and big black hat with a feather. And she had this makeup that made her look a little scary. Is that drag? I would say absolutely it is drag.
And
And
Marley was Sky Masterson.
that's right. Marley
Marley
played a
was
boy.
in suspenders, suit, right,
Mhm.
and sang a boy's song,
Yep.
right, and had a part in the show
Yep.
where her character was absolutely pursuing a woman in that show and played that part. Was Marley in drag? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And
Did
Julia was in
Marley do
drag.
an
Yes.
amazing job?
Absolutely. Yes.
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 Yeah,
And so see if we're, and I think, Murphy, this is my point, is that if we see that that is what drag really is, all of a sudden it's not so scary. Your
yeah,
kid played a boy in the play.
yeah,
Your kid played a scary nanny in the play.
yeah.
Whatever it is, it's not so scary. Take the stigma off of it. These are not people out to corrupt your children. And I think when you talk about, and I want your comments, Chris, I really do, because I think it's important to address things people are thinking. And if that's what people are thinking, then let's talk about it and put it to bed, because that's absolutely not what's going on here, and it's not the case. So maybe if we stop thinking of things that way, and we start thinking of, the real definition of what drag truly is, and it's not a scary thing, but a thing that we've really been dealing with all along anyway, that changes the perception of it all. Stephanie says, I think the name is important. On top of helping kids, they're taking away the stigma that people attach to drag. Yeah, I think that's exactly. The name of it is important. Drag camp. I like it. Personal expression is not shallowness. I think that's in regard to, they could be picking up trash at the beach instead of working on their own self-confidence type of thing. Um, and Stephanie wants to ask Chris, where do you want the line drawn? I don't want the line drawn back in the 50s. I want everyone to be acknowledged for who they are. But Chris does say, I know women who are offended by drag entertainment. What women are offended by drag entertainment? Have they never been to drag brunch? Have they never, come on now. Women offended by drag? I don't want to be that woman. That's a stick in the mud.
I grew
Yeah.
up loving Rocky Horror Picture Show, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry if I came out at a way that I always accepted it, but I love it. I love great performances, you know?
I think it is so much fun. And I will admit that I have not taken the you know me, I don't go to shows very often, but I would love to go to a drag show. I would absolutely love that. That sounds like so much fun. JR, I think you're touching on a vital point for why so many people in flyover states have an issue with drag. Latent homophobia is sustaining their ignorance. It's true. And it's all about ignorance. It's all about not understanding what it really means and who people really are. So, Floyd's Key says, I don't see this as mocking women. I see it as an admiration of one of the things women do or in art. Yep. And this is the thing is Perry Joe Jim Bob is right. It is being used as this lightning rod thing in this upcoming election. I'm sure we'll hear more about the scary drag people, right? Word drag is a single syllable word GOP Neanderthals can rally around. Oh no, shouldn't have disparaged Neanderthals.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, it's upsetting when people, can't just take it for what it really is.
Yeah. Well, and I'll just say that just I know that some people in the chat think that I am biased because my oldest child is trans. But I just want to say we did not know that at all. She didn't know that when she was growing
Mhm.
up. She literally told us, I think it was two she figured it out 2 years ago and told us like baby maybe a month later. Like she was just like lightning rod. I got this. This is what I'm doing. And but growing up was, again, little league and just all of the things that friends at school were doing.
Mhm.
And I always had friends who were gay or was, friends with people again who did drag. That was
Mhm.
me growing up as a performer, but at no point did anyone in our family like say you should dress up. Like that did not occur to us at all. This was a very it seemed like straight-laced serious little boy who um just was only interested in like math and robotics and then music, like in orchestra and band. And we we did not have any inkling because she also did not have any inkling for a long time. She works in black and white. She doesn't really like gray areas. And so once it actually became black and white for her, she told us and wanted to do that. She's a senior now, and we just got her prom dress yesterday, and it's amazing. It's
And is she happy?
amazing.
Is she happy?
So happy. She was
Okay.
really, really depressed for a year and a half before she came out, and she didn't know why, and we didn't know why. And she was sadder and sadder and sadder and didn't want to be in photos, like family photos, was hiding
Mhm.
from the camera and was not happy at a lot of group events. And she didn't know why either. And sorry to yell, I'm just like,
No, no,
and
no.
then
You're not.
when she came out, it's like a boulder lifted. And when she was able to start changing her hair, her makeup, it was like 3 more boulders came off. She smiles, she's in photos now, she loves her friends and has the same friends, and it's all, her band friends, both genders, doesn't matter. They're so happy. The school has been so supportive, the teachers have been so supportive. And she went to prom last year, but she wore a really colorful metallic tux jacket with hair and makeup done. And she said it's going to be harder next year when we go shopping. And we got the dress yesterday, and she feels amazing. It's light blue. It has rhinestone straps. It has a little like a floaty, flouncy skirt. Like think of the Disney Cinderella when she's in the
Mhm.
blue dress and she twirls and it just kind of flies as she turns. That it does this.
That's awesome.
She saw it. She said, I want to try that one on. It was on a mannequin. We had to search. We found one left. It fit.
Meant
And
to
she was
be.
like, I love this dress. I love this dress. We packed it up. We put it in the car. We had to do some other shopping. We walked past the mannequin 2 other times because we were just passing through the store. And every time we passed by, she's like, I love this dress. She's so happy.
I've talked to people who have had kids that are trans, and they say at the very beginning, it's really tough. It's like, you're losing the child that you thought you had. They changed the name that you gave them. You're losing your son. And so it can be, I mean, I would argue that you still have your child. And so for people that have lost children, you know, I don't want to I don't want to put emotions on it because I haven't gone through it.
Yeah.
But what I heard from people is it can be like you're suffering a loss before then you come out the other side of it and realize this is all going to be okay.
My husband and I didn't have that because our child was so much happier almost instantly when she put the words to it. And she actually texted us because she didn't know how she was going to get through it speaking it, so she actually sat next to me and she said, I want to tell you something, and she texted it and had me read it so that could get through the whole thing.
Sure.
She didn't text me from a different room, like, but
Yeah.
she was just like, I
No,
want to
but
write it.
sometimes it's easier to write it than to
Yeah.
say it,
So
right?
she
Yeah.
did, and did that, and did the same, like me first, and then my husband. Like she just was like in steps. My mom had the loss. My
Yeah.
mom has all, which is funny because my mom was always connected the most with my oldest child, and and thought she knew her, right? And then she's the
Right.
one who felt the loss of her grandson, who was a very special part of her
Mhm.
life, who still is now, but my mom had to come through it. And partly because she was so scared. She was scared of violence against trans people. She
Right.
was scared about mental health issues of suicide rates of trans people. And we kept saying, but maybe that's more people who feel threatened or aren't accepted.
Right.
And the more we say, I am so happy that you are being your authentic self.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I can say my child's monumentally happier than
No,
before.
I think you're right. I think it has to do with, I mean, if you were a parent that said, "You're uh we don't accept this. You're wrong. You're bad for feeling this way. Wrong, wrong, bad, bad." And those were the messages that were passed. Of course, kids care even if they act like they don't.
Yeah.
They care what their parents think about them. They care that their parents value and accept them. They care. Just the other day, I told my son, I don't want to hear it. And the look on his face was like, "You don't wanna hear it? Like, you don't wanna hear what I have to say?" It was like I crushed him with my words. I felt awful about it because he cared what I thought about him. And right that at that moment, I was telling him, "I don't care what you want to say. I don't care, what you have to offer to this conversation." So I had some fixing to do in that regard. But just in the same vein, they care about what you think about them. So if you are offering acceptance and kind of this cocoon of love to let them be who they want to be, I think you're going to see a huge difference in the rates of suicide and everything else. If they're starting from a place of acceptance and love. And maybe that's I'm too Pollyanna about it, but it seems to make sense.
I don't know. I mean, I just know that it had nothing to do with her childhood. It had nothing to do with how she dressed or how she played or anything growing up. And but when she felt safe, she told us. When we told her sister literally said, I've always wanted a sister. That is
Oh,
the first thing she said. She said, I always
that's
wanted a
cool.
sister. Of course, now they have to fight over the bathroom more
That's funny.
because two girls take longer in the bathroom. Um,
Murphy, I adore you. I adore you, and thank you for coming on the show. I'm so glad to meet you.
I love you, Kim. I'm so happy to meet
Yeah.
you too. And I'm sorry
I
I miss Nikki, but you
yeah.
you know, I love this show. I love the Mark Thompson show. I love you guys, and it's a huge part of my day. And I do have to go do payroll now. But
Go do
I will
payroll,
share
go
one
do your
last
thing.
thing. My mug today was kind of apropos. I don't know if we can see. It says, I was like, whatever, bitches, and the bitches whatevered. Yeah.
Thank you, Murphy. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I
Yay.
hope you'll pop back in some other time. Murphy, Rowan, everybody. And I would love for you to call in as well. I'll put it in again in the chat. Celeste says, really enjoyed you, Murphy. Yep, I enjoyed too. You know, it's really cool to meet you guys. I love that. She's a great guest, isn't she? And that's the thing is I don't think a guest has to be someone famous that you all want to hear about because a lot of the times what we don't realize is especially in the chat and getting to know each other, that's really interesting. Just getting to know, like-minded individuals and people who are here. And Flo is a great Murphy is a great guest, right, Flo? Yes. Lori says a friend of mine and her new son had a memorial for the old daughter. It was helpful for them as a family. Hey, whatever gets you through it and to the other side into that place of acceptance. Absolutely. Murphy, you're awesome. Thank you again. I hope you call back. You're great. Really great. I want to do a little bit of news, and I'm sorry my screen is frozen. I froze in a really bad spot. Check it out. Yeah, so that's why we're doing this. But let's go to the news now, because there's a lot to talk about. The gunman in Saturday's mass shooting. Oh, wait, should I do my news czar theme? How can we not, right? Let's see if I can't find it. I think I'm going to do it. I think I'm going to do it.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Maduro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Yeah, there it is. The gunman in Saturday's mass shooting at a Texas outlet mall had been removed from the military over mental health issues. That is according to CNN, which cited a law enforcement source familiar with the investigation into the shooting that killed 8 people in the Dallas suburb of Allen. The source told the outlet the 33-year-old Hispanic man served for a brief time in the military before being removed over concerns about his mental health. The suspect was killed at the scene by an Allen police officer. Investigators are reportedly looking into whether the man had expressed an interest in white supremacy as they tried to determine a possible motive for the shooting. Isn't that interesting? We're seeing this more and more now. This is a man who is uh, the quote Hispanic man, so he's Latino, and then maybe expressing an interest in white supremacy, which is interesting because the leader of the Proud Brothers or Proud Boys, just convicted, identifies as Afro-Cuban. I will never understand why people work against their own best interest, their own self-interest. The Biden administration, President Biden, wants airlines to better compensate passengers when flights are delayed or canceled for reasons other than weather. The Department of Transportation will propose a new rule that will require airlines to provide customers with vouchers, miles, even cash refunds when flights are canceled or delayed by something within the airline's control. It would also mandate the cost of hotel rooms, meals, and transportation be covered. The administration launched a new website where passengers can see each airline's compensation policy. The president and American air travelers deserve better. That's what the president said. He said that American air travelers deserve better following thousands of delays and cancellations that occurred over the holiday season. And the thing about that is sometimes it seems you only get the things that should be coming to you if you know about them, right? So you only get the compensation if you're wise enough or have done the research to know what should be coming your way. Well, now with this new website where you can compare compensation policies and know exactly what it is that they need to do to make the situation right, maybe a lot more people will be taking advantage of that. The governor of Arizona says she fears the federal government is unprepared to deal with the end of Title 42. That comes this week. The COVID era was used to expedite deportations, and Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs says the challenges faced by border agents will only be getting worse. Hobbs says her state remains committed to assist the border community during this challenging time. She outlined several steps that she thinks will help lead to managing the influx of migrants. President Biden will welcome House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and other top congressional leaders to the White House tomorrow. They're trying to resolve this whole standoff over the debt ceiling. Congress needs to pass legislation to raise the nation's borrowing limit by early June to avoid a potentially crippling default. McCarthy has said his chamber won't approve any deal that doesn't cut spending to address the growing budget deficit. Democrats, meanwhile, insist Congress has to pass a clean debt limit hike first, then negotiate over spending cuts and budget reforms later. President Biden has refused to negotiate directly over the debt limit, so we'll see what tomorrow's meeting will bring. Twitter will begin the purge to purge the social media platform of inactive accounts. Monday, Twitter CEO Elon Musk said affected accounts will be the ones that haven't been active for several years. Would you be upset if you had a Twitter account? Maybe, you locked your name into place, hadn't used it for a bit, and then they just took it away. Then someone else took your name. He also noted users will probably see follower counts drop as the inactive accounts are wiped. Musk didn't specify if accounts like those from former President Trump or NPR would be affected. The list of productions being impacted by the ongoing writer strike is growing. In a blog post Sunday, author George R.R. Martin confirmed writer's room for the Game of Thrones spin-off series called A Knight of Seven Kingdoms, The Hedge Knight, has shut down. Martin said the series showrunner and his staff are on the picket lines as the Writers Guild of America's strike now enters its second week. The strike has also disrupted production for Marvel Studios' Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again. On Twitter, WGA East said members had begun picketing where filming for the series was set to take place in New York, and members of other unions working on the show had refused to cross the picket line as well. So here we go. I think we're going to see more and more shows affected by this. And is it up to us to put pressure as well on the producers and the makers of these shows to say value the human beings from where these ideas come? Possibly. I don't know. Did you hear about this story? The Roman Catholic Diocese of Oakland is now filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. About 330 lawsuits are alleging child sexual abuse under a recent California statute, allowing decades-old cases to be reopened. So officials say today's filing will stop all legal actions against the diocese, allowing for a plan or reorganization based on assets and insurance coverage available to settle claims. They also state most claims come from allegations of sexual abuse by priests in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I say that does not make those claims invalid. You did it, you pay up. And if you have seen the movie Spotlight about how priests are moved around, about the staggering number of priests that have allegations standing against them, it's clear this is a problem they need to pay for. And if they can't clean it up, then I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't want to trash anyone's religion. But when you look into this, the abuse in that church that has happened and how many people it's affected, I don't understand how you could put money in the plate every Sunday, how you could put money in the dish, and how you could keep going back to that church. I just don't. But I'm not Catholic and not religious, so I'm of the thought that you can believe in God and have faith, and it doesn't have to be in an organized fashion. I know a lot of people disagree, but it's just it's staggering and surprising that we're still here, still looking at these cases. So there is a new Yogi Berra documentary hitting theaters later this week. This new documentary is being released Friday about the life of Baseball Hall of Famer and Yankees legend Yogi Berra. I think Tim Sika talked a little bit about this on Friday. It's called It Ain't Over. It's produced by Berra's granddaughter. Of course, Berra, a longtime New Jersey resident, died at the age of 90 in 2015, while he became famous for his Major League Baseball career, including 18 seasons with the Yankees. He was also known for his very inventive quotes like, "It ain't over till it's over," and "It's deja vu all over again." So that's going to be a good one. And I think Tim Sika said it was actually a really good documentary. He loved it. Here's a job for you guys. Ready for this one? There is a finance company looking for someone to binge watch all of the Fast and Furious movies in exchange for $1,000. Does that seem like an easy job to you? Finance Buzz recently put out a job listing for a Fast and Furious claims adjuster. Their sole task? Comb through all 10 movies and take notes on every car crash that takes place. Those interested have until May 19th to apply, and that is also when the franchise's latest film, Fast X, comes out. So this sounds like a bit of a marketing gig. I don't know. Downtown Nashville Hilton hotel manager is being sued and faces charges over allegedly assaulting a sleeping guest. The victim told police he was recently staying at the property and woke up about 5 in the morning to find the manager sucking on his toes. What? Nashville Metro Police say 52-year-old David Neal was taken into custody on Friday and charged with burglary and assault. The hotel guest filed a lawsuit against both Neal and Hilton, seeking damages for severe and permanent emotional distress, embarrassment, past and future medical expenses, and a loss of earning capacity. All from someone sucking on your toes? In a statement, Hilton noted the property is independently owned and operated by a third party, and that the company is working closely with police as they investigate this incident. Okay. I mean, I feel I would be pretty upset if I woke up to someone sucking on my toes, but and I guess perhaps sue. I don't know. I don't know. I'm Kim McAllister. That is the news on the Nikki Maduro Show. Once again, if you haven't done it yet, please click the like button. We've got the Patreon and PayPal links up at thenickymaduroshow.com. You'll also find the merchandise site there as well. You can click and link right through to the sweatshirts and the t-shirts and the coffee mugs and all the fun stuff we've got there. Here's a story I wanted to bring up to discuss, though. Is San Francisco, the face of San Francisco, changing forever? I saw it with the closure of Nordstrom's in San Francisco. And I read somewhere that bit by bit, store by store, thing by thing, San Francisco is losing itself over and over and over again. And I'm wondering if that's how you're feeling. You know, every time you wake up to see another one of these stories, do you feel like San Francisco is really losing who it is? Here's the latest story. This is out of San Francisco, and it is a T-Mobile store. The story is that T-Mobile's 2-level flagship store in Union Square is closing down. They have permanently shuttered, so that's another massive vacancy in downtown San Francisco. This is a 2-level, 17,000 square foot space on Stockton Street. And if you go there, there's a sign on the front door that redirects you to the store down at Mission and Market, the smaller one. They say, we recently reshaped our retail strategy. A spokesperson for T-Mobile telling SF Gate, employees have been offered roles within the company. So, looks like this happened about a month ago. It's a done deal. This was the flagship store. It was a previous flagship store for Apple. They later moved down to Post Street. But when you see things like this, you know, you've got Nordstrom shutting down in the city. You've got T-Mobile shutting down. You have last week's closure announcements for Saks off 5th on Market. So after 8 years in business, they're gone. As I mentioned, Nordstrom at the Westfield Center and the Nordstrom Rack on Market, they're gone by the end of August. So, you know, they're saying the dynamics of the downtown San Francisco market have changed, impacting customer foot traffic to stores, the ability to operate successfully. But as you see these big businesses checking out of these major, you know, flagship stores, does it feel like San Francisco is losing a bit of its flavor? Am I being over dramatic about all this? I am delighted, absolutely delighted to welcome Jim to the conversation. Hey, how you going? How's it going, Jim?
Hey, I'm good. My opinion about San Francisco is not that it's the stores. If you think about San Francisco from a tourist perspective, it's the Golden Gate Bridge, it's Chinatown, it's even now the Chase Center watching a Warriors game. SF Giants.
Hmm.
Those are big draws. A retail store, while yeah, it'd be nice to see the Nordstrom still there. There's going to be another store there one day, or it might turn into a corporate office. But
Might
that's
turn into
not why
corporate
people come.
offices. But
Yeah,
is
but it's not San
is it
Francisco.
though? But I mean, okay, so you say it's not why people come, but for people around the Bay Area, maybe it is. There are plenty of people who will take the ferry or head into San Francisco for a beautiful
Mhm.
day of shopping in Union Square. They want to see the big Christmas tree, they want to see the store displays. That's
Yeah,
part of the magic of the city. I mean, for someone in the North Bay, having a day of shopping with my mom in San Francisco and Union Square is a pretty big deal. If Macy's goes, and they haven't decided to yet, but if all these big, long-time stores check out of San Francisco, I think we lose this big economic boom of, part of what makes San Francisco great.
well, Macy's definitely. Macy's and the tree goes, it'll be a huge difference. But I think if San Francisco were to lose Macy's, they would just move the tree down to like tier 39. It would just be a shift.
Sure.
But as a whole, the city, it has so many other points to draw. You have the park, Golden Gate Park. You have
Yeah.
the beach. You have Chinatown, Japantown. You have pockets of places where immigrants took over, and now they have a little hub where you go and try their food and explore their clothing stores that they're mom and pop driven still, and they survive.
Yeah,
So
I agree, and I do think that you're right when you say the Golden Gate Bridge, the Chase Center, the Pier 39. There are, yeah, these are icons of San Francisco, but I don't want to discount what the retail sector brings to San Francisco as well. I mean, to every city really, but then on a grander scale to San Francisco. So I don't know. It makes me sad every time I see another big store checking out of the city. It makes me a little sad, but on the other hand, you have people who've either been laid off, like I was, so I'm no longer driving to San Francisco every day, or working from
mhm.
home. And so all these big businesses aren't getting the same foot traffic. They'll say foot traffic and crime are the two things that cause them to, you know, close these mega expensive stores and maybe downsize a bit.
And yes, it's going to be very different. I mean, 20 years ago, if you told them that there was going to be an SAP center building that has an LED light on top that can change messages, or that the Bay Bridge would be torn down and put back with LED lights, even though they got turned off, at least they were there for a few years. So you're always going to have something change every 10, 20 years. And then if it happens even faster because some retail stores close, I'm not really that sad. Because if you look around the world, many cities are not defined by their retail stores. Yes, they may have a super big Apple store or a super big Macy's. That's nice, but that doesn't define the city.
Joe writes, San Francisco leaders have done nothing except court tech companies, asking nothing in return for decades. Maybe not really paying much attention to the retail community. Although I do think they did give a deal to, isn't there an IKEA that's going to open in San Francisco? There's like a new IKEA center. So I don't know,
Mhm.
Joe. It's interesting. An interesting thought, though. Eric says brick and mortar stores have too much overhead compared to online, especially when you look at high rents in urban areas. Yeah, that's very
Right,
true. And
right.
Stephanie says, and I don't know if you agree with this, Jimbo. She says the city is falling apart for so very many reasons.
Well, there are some streets and neighborhoods that are ignored when it comes to potholes, when it comes to, you know, small theft, car break-ins. It's just too many, not enough officers, not violent crimes, so it's considered ignorable, I guess, by some people. But yeah, San Francisco is considered one of the safer cities in terms of murder, kidnapping, the really bad crimes. So
I'm going to put
yes
up
and
this
no.
one and have you comment on this one before I let you go, Jimbo. Flo writes, the perception of San Francisco losing its past grandeur and vibe of flavor certainly appears to be such each week. But what are the great things and the people of the city that maintain its heart and soul?
Okay, well, most of the people that do live there have been there multi-generation. So you have like the small community feel within each neighborhood. So you're not lost most of the time when you move to a big city. A lot of the positive cultures between our museums, our nightlife. I know people say San Francisco doesn't have a huge nightlife, but it still has the gay bars, the trans bars, the
Hmm.
20s bars, the bars where you have Russian music, Brazilian music. There's lots of things that make San Francisco work. And they've been working since pretty much the 50s, where it was after World War II, and that's where all the Navy people came back,
Hmm.
and then they grew and they brought their families from the rest of the world there.
Yeah.
And it's still a place where when people think of a positive city in America, it's pretty much down to San Francisco. New York is scarier to people. Chicago's still scary to people. New York and Chicago have more, but people avoid them when they want to come to America.
Jimbo, I promised I would let you go, but Stephanie writes this one. This is good. Golden Gate Park
Okay.
and the beach, we have lost that access. Downtown is overrun with homelessness and crime, and it feels like no one, the city government, cares enough to do
Mhm.
anything. I think they're
Okay.
doing something. I mean, doesn't it seem like they're embarking on a cleanup and that the district attorney, Brooke Jenkins, is trying to get the drug dealers off the street? Governor Gavin
Yeah.
Newsom has got the California Highway Patrol and the National Guard working on the open air drug market and the fentanyl trade. I mean, maybe it seems like that, or it seemed like that a few months ago, but I think they're moving in and trying to clean it up. What do you think, Jimbo?
Okay. So there's many parts to that. Golden Gate, every once in a while you'll get a little homeless encampment, but they pretty much hide in the trees, so you don't really see them until one or two come out. But every city, no matter what city you're in, has homeless people. I've seen homeless people in like Wisconsin. They're just walking through the streets of the city, and they go from bar to bar begging for money, and people throw them some cash. So, in terms of saying San Francisco is horrible because it has 10,000 homeless people out of a million people, it's not like better or worse around the world. In terms of not being able to get to Golden Gate, I was just there recently. I was able to walk from one end to the beach. As for losing access to the beach, I don't think that there's any access lost or gained. There was some areas where they blocked off from the rains. That was about it. Sharks, they tell you stay away from the sharks and swelling. What was the second part of that question or comment?
Oh, it felt like no one cared. No one in the government cares to do
Okay.
anything.
So I'll agree. Yes, there are pockets where they completely ignore the entire neighborhood, and unfortunately, that's just between less cops and we ignore the poor people. Yes, that has always been there. Um, but if you are able to access the very nice neighborhoods of San Francisco, especially up in the hills, they're still pretty. There's still lots of nice things up there. Lots of walkable restaurants, cafes. There's no homeless people up there. And the joke is, I know homeless people don't want to push their carts up those steep hills. Yes, it's a funny joke, and that is how they keep people out in a way. But there are also neighborhoods that maybe 20 years ago you wouldn't even dare park your car there. Now that people have moved in there, small families, communities have set up. Yeah, it sounds bad that they're pushing, gentrifying, but at the same time, that's the opposite of what you're saying. Is that San Francisco is not overrun by homeless people. There's just these pockets that, unfortunately, you kind of end up pushing them into, and they know they can stay there because no one's going to push them out. So, do
Jimbo,
we want to push them out? You have to put them in hotels and in
yeah.
insane asylums and prisons and whatever facilities to get them off the street. But we haven't prioritized that because we want to pay for schools, potholes, and fire trucks and policemen. So if you want to lose a few policemen, lose a few things, and deal with potholes, and go to your city hall meetings and vote for the right people that care about the homeless and can do something about it, then you can work on that as a solution.
Jimbo, I love your brick background, and I love that you always take the time to call in and talk to me. So then talk with us. So thank you for that.
Okay.
I
All
look
right.
forward to the next time. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Let's continue this conversation. Lori writing in, this used to be lots of tourist shopping. Gumps, I Magnins, I and J. Yeah. Some stores only in San Francisco. This has been changing for a while. Anyone that worked downtown in the 70s and 80s can attest to tourists in Union Square. So John writes, how does the rethinking of policing go, of San Francisco's homeless policies, of drug use, of distribution and distribution tolerance, of being able to steal with no consequence? And again, John, I do think, and thanks for joining from Facebook, I do think that there is a push by the mayor of San Francisco, by the DA, and even by the governor to clean up, to change those policies and to clean up the streets. That there is no longer tolerance for drug distribution on the streets. You know, I think they're cracking down on theft as well. That's what it seems like, or maybe that's just my high hopes, John, but it seems like maybe this whole crackdown of the open air drug market just started last week. Maybe we need to give it time to see if it actually makes a difference. I'm hoping that it will. It might be too late for some businesses, though, who have already decided to check out. And that's really a bummer. Vilma says, I went to Seattle this last weekend and saw a vibrant, growing city. No tents by Pike Market. I didn't see tents downtown. There are homeless there, I imagine, but not visible all over. That's interesting, Vilma, because when you talk about Seattle, I thought there was a very large homeless population there and that they had allowed them to have tent villages all over the place. So it's interesting that what you saw doesn't align with what I had thought about that place, but I'm glad to hear that what you saw was a vibrant, growing city. That's great. John says people believe everything they hear and the exaggerated problems in SF. You don't have to fly around SF to avoid all the piles of poop. You do not. I would argue, though, John, that if you park your car in San Francisco, you do take a risk. The car break-ins in San Francisco are pretty bad. And I don't think they're on anybody's priority list to fix. And so, as someone who doesn't want to have to pay to, get their window replaced, I know as a former San Francisco resident, I know enough not to leave anything in my car that I want ever. I tell my kids if we're, parking somewhere, even in a smaller town like Petaluma, if you like it, take it with you. That means your backpack, your school iPad, whatever. We're not leaving it in the car. Expect that when you come back to the car, nothing is going to be here that you left here. And I think that's really how you have to operate in San Francisco. Yoga Room of Hampshire. Yoga Room of Hampshire from Chicago, and it's way better than San Francisco with exception of the weather. You just need to know where to go, where not to go. That's really the case anywhere, though, right? I mean, there's always weird spots. Wes says CNN is doing a special on San Francisco next week. It's called What Happened to San Francisco with Anderson Cooper. That'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing that. I mean, I hope they tell the true story. I put the links back up there, you guys. So there they are. Vilma, writes Joe, glad to hear Seattle's doing well. Beautiful city. Used to live there. Seattle is beautiful. Oh, Joe also writes, pockets seem to be anywhere downtown. What about the fact that you can't leave anything in your car? Yeah, I just mentioned that. You can't leave anything in your car. That's true. But that's a different type of crime than open air, drug dealing, the organized theft of stores that have caused several of them to shut down and just walk away. SF Tesla says the city was a delightful place to explore. Now it's just like the burbs around it. Best Buy, Walgreens, Bed Bath & Beyond turned into the burb. The cannery is a school. Why go there for the same old, same old? I still think, though, SF Tesla, there, as Jimbo mentioned, there is flavor to San Francisco. You come through the Waldo Tunnel with that view of the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's magic. You see the fog covering the towers of the Golden Gate and seeping in, starting down, at Ocean Beach and then kind of covering Golden Gate Park all the way up to Alamo Square where it stops. This is magic. This is, these are things that make you feel like home. The barking of the sea lions at Pier 39, the lights well, used to be lights on the Bay Bridge. That view as you come down Broadway and see the Bay Bridge standing there in a sparkling bay. These are amazing views. This is amazing flavor. The Embarcadero, even with all of its characters running back and forth. It's good. I mean, there's so much good about San Francisco. We just have to clean it up. It's not gone forever. I don't want to say that that it's gone forever, but it is changing from what it was. That's true. Nick writes, Google search did a quick one in 2020, an estimated 65,000 homeless in Chicago, 38,000 homeless in San Francisco. I think I read somewhere that during the pandemic, more people moved to warmer climates from other places where they were homeless. So the 2020 estimate might not be realistic now. I was reading somewhere that in our entire state, 171,000 homeless people. So I'm not sure that number may have been is true in 2020, but right now it might look a little different. Thank you though for that, Nick. I appreciate it. Jimbo for the next city councilor or supervisor. Yes, Jimbo loves San Francisco. I've never gone to San Francisco to go shopping at Nordstrom or the like. I have, as a matter of fact, Nordstrom in San Francisco has, at least until August, and maybe it's a good time to go because it's going to be closing down, a really cool restaurant on the top floor overlooking the financial district and some of the beautiful old buildings. And when you're up high looking out the windows, you can see that detail on the tops of buildings, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful city moment. So it's not just the shopping. Sometimes it's the going out to lunch and all of the economic impact that brings as well. You know, um, let's see. Chris is saying regarding homeless numbers, looking up homeless population stats yesterday, Los Angeles had 4 million in 1950. Now it's 10 million, feels like 20. There's no doubt that, our biggest cities and our smallest cities, the entire state, has a problem when it comes to making sure people have shelter. Yeah. A yoga room of Hampshire. Never seen anyone shoot up in Chicago and grew up there. Yet every time I go to San Francisco from the South Bay, I see someone with a needle in their arm. It's shocking. I will agree with you there. Um, I think when you talk about Chicago, and I've never been there, so I have to admit that you have a lot more knowledge when you're comparing these two cities. But from what I understand, Chicago might have more gun violence. So when you said shoot up, my first thought went to guns. But yes, I've told the story more than once how I took my daughter to see Hamilton, thought I scored by getting a street parking spot and got out of the car with my then 10, 11-year-old daughter. And there was an entire city block where people were sitting with their back up against a concrete buildings wall all the way up and down the block. And they were in various states of shooting up, needles in the arms, sharing needles, doing, laying there with their eyes rolling back in their head. This is what my 11-year-old saw. So all I could do then was use it as a moment to say, this is why we never start drugs, so we never have to stop, because the people that can't stop end up on the sidewalk like that. And that's not, it's a choice about who you want to be. What are you going to say? What are you going to say to a kid? Don't start so you'll never have to stop and you'll never end up like that. I'm sorry to say that that's what I said and that's what I thought. John says, I'm thinking that the war on drugs was a roaring success, but we didn't realize it at the time. It doesn't seem like a roaring success. Drugs are still here. Stephanie, I have heard them say they are cracking down, but no evidence of it yet. I was in the Market Street Whole Foods just prior to its closing. It was horrible. Simply scary walking down the street. Well, you can understand then why they've got to go, right? And you can understand why Nordstrom's is like, you know what? No one's coming to the city to work anymore. There's not a lot of traffic, and we're afraid of our employees getting, mugged or whatever as they come to work. Our clientele is getting their cars broken into. I see it. It makes me sad, but I see it. And hopefully, Stephanie, they will be cracking down. They say just started last week, so maybe we'll see some movement on that. And it seems like the DA is coming down harder on people arrested for dealing drugs as well. Lori says housing seems to be a universal problem. Places with better weather tend to have more people visible on the streets. Other first world countries having homeless problems, many have refugee camp type things. But that's really, what do you want to scoop up all the homeless people and put them in a big tent encampment on Treasure Island so that no one sees them and they're just kind of there? Keep our city clean and free of the debris. You can't do that to people, though. I mean, that's like a concentration camp simply for not having a house. Got to do something. I don't know if that's it, and I don't think you're saying it is, but yeah, housing is a universal problem. Yeah. Vilma says the problem with San Francisco is not only the homeless, but the perception of the homeless problem and the crime being so prevalent all over. We talked recently about violent crime rates having gone down in San Francisco. So, murder, rape, assault, those types of crimes may be on the decrease. Property crime, though, not so much. Murphy says, used to go to San Francisco for big shopping and lunch back when San Jose's mall had smaller stores and just a McDonald's. Now go to the Valley Fair or Santana Row to shop and dine. Why drive all the way northward? You don't need to. Although I would say there is something special about that excursion to Union Square at Christmas time with the big tree and all the big fancy stores with the window decorations. And Macy's always has the animals, the little animals from the SPCA that are up for adoption in the windows. It can be a special time. But for day to day, or if you just want one special day and it's not necessarily holiday related or whatever, I agree. I mean, if I lived in the South Bay, Santana Row, I'll take my daughter to the Village in Corte Madera to go shopping. And, there's something to be said also for instead of going to these big chain stores, keeping it local. So going just downtown to my local community where I want to support the stores in Petaluma where there's at least 3 streets worth of a downtown retail district. And pretty much all the stores are mom and pop stores. There's no chains. They just allowed a Round Table Pizza on Kentucky Street, and that was kind of a big deal. It's the first chain restaurant that's down there. But there's something to supporting, our local stores. Stephanie also writes, in the Sunset used to be a sleeping neighborhood. Now I see people shooting up on 19th and Terravall. Ugh. Well, thank you for letting the CHP and the National Guard know exactly where they need to go next, right? Nick writes, every city has problems with homelessness, drug abuse, filth, and crime. That is true. But and maybe you could argue that because we had a DA for a time that wasn't really taking that those types of crimes seriously, that it became worse here. But I don't see the same thing happening. And so maybe now it's getting better. And I think we have to give the people that are trying to make it better time to make a difference. Question for the chat, writes N Stars. How long will the Bay Area keep losing people? The population peaked in 2019 at 7.7 mil, down 3 straight years to 7.5 million in 2022. What I read, N Stars, is that for all the people that left, and many of them, I was just reading an article about this. I want to say in the Chronicle or SF Gate, and they went through, and it was an article about do people that left and most of them in this article had moved to Texas regret it, and are they trying to come back? And a lot of people they interviewed left for political reasons. Some people kept their homes here to rent out, and most of them that left couldn't afford to buy a home here, left for other places, were able to find homes. But during the time when they left, you had, Texas put its ridiculous abortion restriction laws into place. It is true that California is very expensive, but I I don't know if it's worth moving to other places. You take the risk that you're gonna run into a bunch of laws like that that are just that's untenable for me as far as a place to live and be. When you start restricting the rights of women, I can't support you. Um, but when I'm talking about losing people, I also read in this article that for everyone we've lost, it seems like they've been replaced by people moving to California from other places. And that could be from different countries, different states, what have you, so that our population is growing even as it's sinking. Joe says, when I lived in San Francisco and was coming back in from the North Bay, I would always think how lucky I was to live there. I think it every time I go through the Golden Gate Bridge and see that view of the Golden Gate, every time, even if it's shrouded in fog. Absolutely. Lori says, I think the destination aspect of San Francisco has diminished. The hassles with parking and traffic, in addition to street people issues, make it less desirable as a lunch and shopping excursion in the city. Yeah, I agree with you, Lori. I think a lot of people would rethink it. You know, where it used to be, oh, let's take the ferry into the city and walk over to Union Square. Maybe you're a little more worried about, who you're going to meet along the way. Maybe true. And yes, Murphy agrees that parking is an added hassle and expensive too. Wow. Um, let's see what Murphy has to say. It's a great explanation though, since we don't know who will become addicted. Don't start. Yeah. If you don't want to stop, if you know that stopping could be a problem, then don't start. Then you never have the problem of having to stop. It seems so simple and easy, and I don't know if it's actually gonna work on them, Murphy, to say it like that, but I'm really trying. I'm really trying, because I have my son who's just has this lack of impulse control, and he's only 9, but I worry as he grows up what that will mean. So I'm really trying to hammer that home. Don't start. If you don't start, you never have to stop. Jim, hi, Jim. I wonder if there is a connection with less foot traffic from remote workers means the homeless are more emboldened to be in the financial district on along Market Street. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think they really care whether there's other people milling around or not, right? They're out there living their best life. Lori says, too much double messaging. Addiction is a disease, but God forbid have safe user areas so people not shooting up on the street. Right. Because if you have the safe user areas, are you condoning then the use of drugs? You don't want to do that, but you also don't want them lining up on the city block shooting up. It's a conundrum, my friend. It is a conundrum. Eric says, yeah, Trump suggested shipping homeless off to camps as a solution. That's rather internment-y, isn't it? Does that feel internment-y to you as it does to me? Yeah, no. Yeah, Lori, I got that. You weren't suggesting the camps for unhoused. Just saying I've seen pictures of these in other countries, European mostly. The level of despair, writes Flo, and the sad humanity on that wall on your way to Hamilton must have been overwhelming to say the least. Your story and that image speaks volumes. Hope the root of that changes. It's an eye opener for sure. I drove to the city every day, and that was an eye opener for me. I have never seen anything like that. And you should have seen the wide circle like saucer eyes of an 11-year-old little girl. Whoa. Yeah. Um it's hard to see that. And so I think the only thing you can do is use it as a learning moment. And in doing so, I probably denigrated those people that were sitting there, and made them somehow less than in my daughter's eyes. But it was the only way I could think to say, you know, this is what happens when if you, and I don't know if I mommed it right or not. We're all just trying, aren't we? I don't know. Three main reasons, this writes Lori, for losing homes with some overlap: mental illness, drug addiction, catastrophic life change, or medical job loss. A little safety net available is because that's considered too socialist. Well, even though we had all those rent protections in place during the pandemic, right? We had I forget what it's called, but we would protect our renters when they couldn't make their rent payments during the pandemic. And still, we have a homeless population that grew and grew and grew during the pandemic to levels we had never seen before. Likely because they're moving here from other places, but also some people, couldn't work, had those catastrophic life moments that you talk about, and ended up on the street. And this is even with us offering hotel rooms to the homeless to get them off the street, putting up these tent cities in front of City Hall. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, so we have the care court, going on with the is it legal, is it not legal, right? And I think that would address your first one, Lori. That's mental illness and maybe drug addiction as well. The catastrophic life change, medical or job loss, those people I think we can help get back on their feet and get back into work and get back to jobs. Those are the people I think the outreach folks can really help because there are all kinds of programs to get people back on their feet. You take advantage of them and use them. You can't do that with people that have mental illness because they're not going to get a job probably that they can excel in. Not all the time. Maybe they can get back on medication and be productive members of society. But I think some people are just not able to work. They just can't do it. So those people I don't think um, will be able to help as much as your third category. Nick says people use population shifts to justify their political bias when the reality is more subtle and complex than their tiny brains can handle. Maybe, or maybe we just don't really have a good handle on where people are going and where they're coming from. But yeah, I see I see what you're saying. They know right where the crime is and who's doing it, says John. They just lack the will because jails and prisons are overcrowding and whatever. I don't think we have overcrowding anymore, do we? Not like it was. Yeah. Vilma says the big problem with big cities in America is rent. If you are, I think she means low income and need a Section 8, then you have to wait for someone to die in order to get housing. That doesn't work. Yeah. Chris says I used to rent a studio apartment for $390 a month in Southern California in the late 90s. You will never find that now. No, as a matter of fact, I was reading an article today about a woman who uh, rents an apartment it was a big city, like New York or San Francisco, and she pays $1,900 a month for like 360 square feet. She said it's big enough for a bed and a dresser. That's it. That is it. Dan with a message for Murphy. So glad to hear about your older daughter turning from depression to happiness. You and your daughter and family are brave souls. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate you sharing too. I think that hearing stories like that are it's important because you never know when people are going to go through the same experience, and I hope they turn to what you went through and how you handled it as a way that they can turn something makes a positive change for their children. So thank you for sharing that. It was very important, Murphy. Uh, Oh, you're talking thank you, Lori, that helped that makes me feel better. Add that you could be a genetic predisposition. I did. I think that, they say some families do have, um, a proclivity toward addiction, and, I think many families can point to someone that has had that struggle. So, yeah, I didn't say that at the time, but I hope she knows that, and if she doesn't, I'll make sure to tell her, so thanks for pointing it out. Yeah. I agree, Joe. I think the addiction is so strong that you take your chances. She writes, "What is odd to me is how many people are risking death from fentanyl." Yeah. Um, Rick talking about Nikki. It's always exciting to hear your favorites back on the radio, so it's nice. It is different. It is not talk radio. It is news, so there is going to be a difference there. Cheryl writes, "Are there any homeless who aren't drug addicts or mentally ill?" Yes. Yes, there are. There are people, as Lori mentioned, who are just down on their luck. You know, mothers who may have been in an abusive situation who took the kids and left. Now what? Now they have nothing. They have no money. They have, you know, they were at the mercy of the of their partner who may have paid for housing, but they were in a bad situation. So now what? Those are people that can be helped. I think there are people that are homeless who are not drug addicted or mentally ill. And the number of homeless people includes people that are couch surfing. So people that, might not have a home of their own, but they stay for a month on friend B's couch and then they move over to friend C's couch and as they get their lives back together. Stephanie writes, and then we'll wrap up the show, you guys. No, not camps, but state-of-the-art rehab facilities. A change in the laws that would allow those people who cannot make clear decisions to be admitted for about 12 to 18 months. I think that's a little bit of what Care Court has going for it. So, yeah. I think that's true. And yes, Lori, I agree. And you're talking from speaking from experience, knowing someone and living with someone, and that you never got addicted. You don't know it's too late. So you don't know until it's too late. So you just don't try. That's my whole point. If you don't want to end up on the street, homeless, babbling incoherently, then don't start. You'll never have to go to rehab if you don't start. Just don't start. Is that a hard thing to not start? I know there's peer pressure. I know there's a moment where you're at a party and you want to because all your friends are. But if you look at the severity of the situation you could put yourself in, maybe for some people it takes a while to become addicted, but maybe for some people it's that very first hit. If you don't take that first one, then you never have to worry about it. Maybe I'm simplifying. Okay, you guys have been awesome. I have loved talking to Murphy and Jimbo. I've loved talking to you. We've got another day of this coming up tomorrow, and then Nikki will be back Wednesday through Friday. I so appreciate you guys and the way you're really participating in the conversation and making a lot of really interesting points. I really value what you're bringing to the table. I would like to thank Jim Lou for coming on, or Jimbo for coming on the show, and also Murphy. And thank you as well. There is a thumbs up button you can clickety click, and we appreciate your support there. And of course, I'll throw the website up here if you're so moved to financially support the show, theNikkiMadoroshow.com. I am grateful to you for being here, and I will end it like we always do. I'll see you tomorrow. Here's Jacob.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You're sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.